Hey everybody, thanks for watching. This is Andrew from Schnauzerface Minis, and I am really excited about today's tutorial. This is the new Chaos Maulerfiend, which I've painted in the Night Lord's color scheme. And if I'm not mistaken, this model of a ferocious four-legged killer beast is actually based on my own miniature Schnauzer Jessie. And you can really see the resemblance, I think. When airbrushing, I use a custom mix for my thinner. It's 50% distilled water, 40% drying retarder, and 10% Liquitex Flow Aid. The Flow Aid helps the paint go through the airbrush smoothly, and the drying retarder prevents the paint from drying on the tip of the needle. The amount of thinner varies between paint lines and colors, but 1:1 is usually a good starting place for VMA paints. Model air paints technically are ready straight out of the bottle, but a little thinner will help prevent clogs and provide a bit more translucency. Now we're on to the lightning. First, I just block in the glow that will surround the actual lightning bolts. I drop the PSI to about 12, which will help me shoot thinner lines, and this also allowed me to get closer to the model without splattering paint everywhere. For this part, I added more thinner than usual, about 1 drop of paint to 2 drops of thinner. The lower PSI will require a thinner mix, and since this is just the glow, I don't want it to be too opaque. I wanted the glow to really stand out, so I used a glaze of Leviathan Purple at about 6 drops of water to 1 drop of wash. When airbrushing something this thin and watery, it's important to shoot it in short, controlled bursts to keep the water from pooling. Also, I typically shoot a small amount of wash and then use air through the airbrush to help speed the drying time. Now it's time for the lightning bolts. I'm using a Winsor & Newton Series 7 miniature size 00 brush, which is the smallest one I have. In addition to a really small brush, I use a lot of thinner and drying retarder. Wet, thin paint comes off the brush a whole lot easier than thick, gloopy stuff. Now I add color into the shadows with Secret Weapon Violet Pigment. You could also grind down an artist pastel to make your own pigment. I've started using turpentine as a thinner for oils, and I think it helps the wash flow better than mineral spirits. But be careful, turpentine is stronger than mineral spirits, and too much could start to eat away at the paint. So apply it in small doses and let it dry before putting on a second coat if you need it. I tend to use oils to do the typical wash stuff, shading the recesses, blacklining, and that kind of thing. They're just so much more convenient and easier to work with than a typical ink wash. But those definitely still have their place in my workflow. I use the GW washes all the time for tinting, saturating, or shifting underlying colors. So while I don't think Leviathan Purple and Bale Red and Ogren Flesh are the best choices for shading the recesses, they are fantastic when used as a pre-thin, translucent ink. They work great through an airbrush, and they can help add some color nuances and visual interest really quickly and really easily. I'm trying out some new things with golds, and this process is definitely still a work in progress. But for now, I'm shading all but the brightest areas with Griffin Sepia. This is straight out of the pot. Now I use a 1-to-1 mix of old gold and silver to start highlighting. Remember, you gotta use isopropyl alcohol to thin this bad boy, or the metallic flakes could rust. Next, I deepen the shadows with Ogren Flesh, again, right out of the pot. A lot of you guys know I don't play 40k. I had fun painting this guy, but I'm trying to consolidate my extra minis to make room for new models. So what I'd like to do from now on is trade painted models for something else I can paint in an upcoming tutorial. I don't want to profit in any way from my channel, so I'm looking to trade these rather than sell them. So if you play Night Lords and need a Maulerfiend, feel free to send me a message. I'm happy to trade in your favor, so don't be afraid to make any offer. If you pause at the end of this video, you'll see a list of minis I'd like to paint in upcoming tutorials. I'd prefer unpainted, unassembled models, and I'm happy to supplement my end with cash or additional models to make sure it's a fair deal. I'm using VMA silver on these metallic surfaces. You may be wondering why I'm not using the liquid metal silver. Well, I love that paint, but it is hard to control in really tight areas. It's really thin and tends to run all over the place, almost like a wash, so it's easier to use on larger surfaces. The VMA silvers are really smooth and shiny, and they're also easy to control, so they're perfect for this job. I've covered the base in plumber's putty, which is a great alternative to green stuff for projects like this. I water down matte medium 1:1 and pool it all over the base. Then I start dumping on a bunch of Vallejo weathering pigments. Usually I'd be more precise, but this is a huge base, so I just toss it on there. Now I pour on Wyman floor polish, which will absorb into the pigment and leave a really wet, muddy look. This is probably the dumbest way anybody could possibly have poured this stuff on there. Finally, I throw on some realistic water to create puddles. Again, I wasn't really thinking ahead when doing this. A paper towel would have been a good idea here. And that should just about do it. In the spirit of the season, I'd like to give a big thanks to all my subscribers. You guys are awesome, and I appreciate you letting me share my hobby with you. But most of all, I want to thank my wife, who is the best wife in the whole universe, and without her support and encouragement, I would have given up on this channel a long time ago. So dudes, give your wives and girlfriends an extra big hug today. We all know this hobby takes a ton of time and energy and money, and we should make sure that our better halves know how much we appreciate their patience. So I hope your holiday season gets off to a great start, and I'll be back with another tutorial soon. Thanks for watching.